So next we're going to look at our box and whisker plots. And our box and whisker plots, we're going to look at that picture in just a second. They're composed of quartiles. That's really important to understand that every section of the box is a quartile. And you probably can hear the word quarter in there. That's really important. So we have Q1, so it's basically we're dividing our data into quarters. We're dividing our data into quarters. So we have Q1, you have Q2, which is really just the median. So we don't say Q2, we say median. And then we have Q3. So that's going to divide our data into 4 quarters. The interquartile range, notice the word range there. The range was just range on its own, was your maximum minus your minimum. But if it's the interquartile range, now it's just your Q3, your third quartile, minus your first quartile. So we talked earlier about these quartiles. We're going to actually find them now and use them in just a second. So first things first, let's look at our box and whisker plot. Here's our box and whisker plot here at the top. We've got, notice that it starts out with a point at the very beginning right here. We have then the beginning of our box. So our box has a beginning, it has a line down through inside it, and then it has an end, and then we have our whisker off to the side here at the very end as well. So we have a box and whiskers, simply called a box and whiskers because it has a box with 2 whiskers off to the side. Notice that none of those sections are the same size. That doesn't have to be the case. This is not a symmetrical thing. So first things first, that first dot is your minimum. All right, that first dot is your minimum. And then the very last dot is your maximum, right? So the beginning is the minimum. The very last dot is the maximum. The beginning of the box is your Q1. That's the beginning of your box. The end of the box is your Q3. So your quartiles, your Q1, your Q3, make up the beginning and the end of the box. But then the line that goes inside the box. Now I'm not saying in the middle of the box because that's clearly not in the middle. But the line that goes inside the box is your median. That's the median of your graph, of your box and whisker plot. Okay? So it's important to understand where these things extend from. I think it's pretty obvious to you, but that left whisker is going all the way from the minimum to your Q1, to your first quartile. And what's important to understand about that is that that section right there, so that's this section right here, represents 25% of your data. All right, it represents 25% of your data. All right, the box then goes from your first quartile, Q1, to the third quartile. To the third quartile, Q3. Right? And it has that vertical line going through the median, like we talked about, going through the median. But the box itself, like I said here, is from Q3 to Q1, so that the box itself represents the interquartile range. So interquartile range. And because the box is 2 sections, section number 1, section number 2, right? It's 2 sections of data, then it's not just 25%, but it's 2 sections, so it's 50% of your data, 50%. And then last but not least, just to wrap us up real quick, we go from our third quartile here, Q3 all the way to the maximum. Again, that's going to be 25% of my data. Even though it looks like a much larger section, it's still 25%. So hopefully you've noticed every single section is worth 25%. No matter how large or wide these sections are, they're all worth 25% of your data. So a box and whisker plot gives us a very good visual understanding of how spread out our data is and some of our key data components. So I want us to take a second, go ahead and use Desmos to find these 5 main things: the minimum, the Q1, the median, the Q3. I'm going to get it all set up and then I'm going to show you how to do it. Go for it.